Welcome. I got to do the arm thing. Welcome to episode 120 of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Eddie, and joining me this week, a man who surprised me with not one, but two brand new minis for our Gloomhaven campaign, both which he printed and painted just for us, and of course you, the viewer. So let's give it up for all of his hard work, and for me, who decided that this was the episode to break out my first real positive intro for Gaz. Say hi, Gaz.
Hi, guys. Well, you've been positive before, but there's usually a drive-by in there as well, right? Like, hey, this is really good. Yeah, because you're usually shit, right? And that's the kind of positivity. It's just like, take everything as a compliment, and it's you're always happy. So
the producers have requested that we do a 10-to-1 ratio, so we were due for the positive one. And now
we've done 120 episodes. I have not gotten 12 totally positive.
I reckon we have. I reckon I've given you at least 12 over the years.
All right, maybe. Yeah. But anyway, thanks. Yeah, no, it was good. I got a friend to print it out and did a kind of rush job on it, and it's first my time kind of printing and painting something like that. The quality of the mini is different. I won't say it's bad, but it's just different because there was detail there that were hard to see, and yeah, it was fun. It was kind of cool, and I think it adds a little bit, just like having like the painted minis on the board brings out a little bit more to what you see there than either the cardboard or the unpainted mini. True. Which we have used a couple of times. Yeah, it does look cool having that dwarf useless contraption standee sitting there, or the rats, which spoilers if you haven't watched a playthrough, were absolutely useless, but at least they sat there for like a couple of turns.
Yeah, look, they got pasted as per normal, and that's their job. They saved me. So it's almost like a bone shaper, right? You stick the pets out there to copper cleaving, and that means we're safe. It's just, it eats a card. Yep. You're burning a card for me.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. So, although there were some comments around it not being a good scenario for the rats, because what we did was, and we'll talk about, but everything had retaliate, right? There was wolves, there was frost demons, I think they're called. I did actually look at my cards and go, this is a bad scenario to bring my rats in that don't have a lot of health and everything has retaliate. But I just painted the mini, so I'm going to bring it anyway. And so it was really selfish for that reason, because I didn't want to be like, wait another week for that. And so, yeah, at some stage, I was like, let's bring it out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm running into exactly the problem I thought I was. I don't want to hit anything, and they don't want to hit anything. So
you need that bone shaper crossover card that lets you ignore retaliate.
That's right, we do. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. We need an ability draft. When you level up, you can pick one from your own character or one from one of the Frosthaven characters.
Yeah, okay.
Any character. Yeah.
I was going to say, when are you slowly, like surprise-wise, going to be printing out all of the walls and the tables and the traps and all that kind of stuff? And eventually we're going to get one of those really cool setups.
By the time, we're 3 years into our next Haven campaign, sure, maybe I'll have. I don't actually have a 3D printer, so I had to get, like I said, I had to get a mate to do it. So no, I have seen them on Reddit, and they are ridiculous. Whoever that person is, or I think I've seen multiple people do it, but I think I've seen one person in particular that's going through doing each scenario. It's insane, right? Next level diorama insane, and they did an amazing job, but there's zero chance I'm doing that. I'm lucky to get the minis painted on time.
That's a good point, actually. It's surprising, actually, you managed to fit those 2 extra minis to surprise us for the week, and get those painted in time. I'm pretty sure there's still a starter out there that you haven't painted, but hey, it's fine, right?
Hey, no. I've done all 6 starters. The crag heart maybe got, when I was taking some photos of it. I was just like, you kind of got forgotten a bit, mate. You were like, they're all done. Oh, except for him. What is he, green? Yeah, he's green. That's fine. So, yeah, I'll have to post those photos somewhere. So,
all right. On today's episode, on our agenda, we're going to do Dirtbag Mail, recovering to last week's topic and questions around, cooperation and selfishness and all that kind of stuff. We're going to be recapping Scenario 3 of Gloomhaven 2nd Edition, and this is the Frozen Hollow. And then we'll be running into our amDirt Diaries, any character updates, any topics just based around our characters, choices, all that kind of stuff. And then our topic for today, I've decided to come up with the Haven introduction trifecta as a little thing that it's perfect timing for it. We've done 3 scenarios. I want to compare it to the 3 scenarios from Gloomhaven First Edition, Jaws of the Lion, and Frosthaven. Just to get a little bit of a throwback and a little bit of a memory back, and see which one we might prefer now that we've done all 3. All right.
Okay. Cool.
Quickly on the dirt sheet, which is our news segment. Spoiler alert if you have not seen our 3rd episode of the playthrough, but we met Hale. I won't go into this now, but this means according to
our... Give us a snapshot?
No. I feel like, Nancy Cartwright now, who every now and then people are like, hey, do the Bart. She does it.
Do the Bart thing, yeah.
Do the Hale. But it means according to the council, the amDirt council in our Discord, that we're not allowed to be involved in any of the discussions or chats in there, we have to add her to the amDirt unboxing character bank. So that has been done, and we have unboxed her, which is pretty exciting, and that video will be going up probably this week. We'll see how we go. Just a quick reminder that our unboxings are not reviews. I don't know who needs to hear that.
No.
But
well, they are kind of a review, but they're a review on our experience of unboxing them, right? Like, you get to see us look at the things and decide whether we understand how it works or not whether it's any good.
Exactly.
And like, we're not giving you a rating out of 10. We're not even looking at any of the cards past level 1 or X.
No.
So it should not be classified as a review or a guide.
Not at all. Like, not at all. But people seem to like the format. This is probably one of the most exciting ones that we've done since, I think, the character ones in Crimson Scales, because it is so fresh. We know absolutely nothing about them. Unlike the Gloomhaven starters that we've done, we had a preconceived notion of how they kind of worked and what would change and all that kind of stuff. So this will be bare bones, brand new, starting with Hale, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, and it was, right? Like, without going into any of the details, like, I loved that. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Like, it was a very well done character from a whole bunch of different aspects. So, yeah, check out that once it goes up, and it's fun to see us laugh and stumble across things. But I think we got it right in the end.
Yeah, piecing it together is always part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Dirtbag. Okay, we'll go through some of the comments about from last week. So Eric Kra says that we call our group the No Friends League because we allow for a little bit of selfishness in play, which is I like. We mostly keep our battle goals hidden, I like, but you can often figure them out. Though by our 10th session, we mostly figured out what everyone's PQ was. See, that's another thing I really enjoy in our group, is sitting there trying to work it out, apart from Phil's, because anything that's going to give you an item, you kind of know that item may or may not have to be used a certain amount of times, right? But you can only donate to the church so many times before the group figures it out. Yeah, okay. I don't fault you for the tough decisions on battle goals versus big hit. I was in that boat last game and dumped the goal to make sure we beat the scenario. We did win, but barely. Eric, I can say that you would be welcomed at our table. I like all of that. You'd fit in just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, the PQ one's interesting. And I know there was a couple of... when we were doing CS, I had one that you had to finish the scenario within a certain threshold of HP. I think it was like on 1 or 2 HP. And I managed to get through that one, and when I had completed it, I was like, all right, well, what was it? And there was lots of guesses, and it was pretty far out there. Like, it's because it's a really tricky one to notice. But again, if you had all the session and all the data side by side, you'd probably see that theme, right? But like without, so it is fun. It's a fun little game of like, I like can I hide what I'm trying to do? Almost like it's sneaky.
Yeah.
And I feel like in some world where it couldn't be gamed, it would kind of be cool where if you got through that and then you said, all right, everybody gets one guess to figure out what it was. And if they don't get it, then there's some kind of reward. But I mean, that's too much like, oh, well, people will just say stupid shit so you get heaps of free stuff, right? But I like that idea of like including it as a must where people shouldn't know what your thing is. And then out of nowhere, you're like, bam, I'm retired. And people are like, oh, I didn't realize that. So
what Gaz is saying is that if people can guess our PQs, he's going to send them a prize.
Yeah, that's that's exactly what I said. What I'll do is I'll go to the prize room, which is just Eddie's game room, which has all his games in shrink. And yeah, I'll do like the Sale of the Century Wheel of Fortune thing where you're a little spotlight in the top left and we'll pan the camera across and you're like, ooh, I'll have that one, thanks.
Okay, I've got to rearrange the games and actually have like the ones that I'm happy to get rid of. Intrepid, anyone? You win, Intrepid. Rognan. Rognan said, at our table, we usually try to distribute loot across the party. I've seen a lot of that. Oh, wait, that's different to the looting at the end where you just snap up everything, right? Unless that's actually what Rognan's doing. If someone has way too much money, they will probably leave the chest or the loot tokens for others. See, that's individual, right? That's individual choice. It's not a rule. I guess it's not a contract, a social contract you're saying at the start. That's
Yeah.
almost on the individual, right? There is also
Yeah.
always an element of role play, though. If my character does not care about others, I, as a player, am more likely to behave selfish during the game and get away with it. That's cool. That's interesting.
Okay.
Also, just wanted to say that I think looking at the level up cards is a very fun way to play the game. It leaves more opportunities to be surprised. I did this once with Bannerspear, and I was looking forward to leveling up much more. On most other characters, what I try to do is look at the cards once, at least until level 5, to get an idea of what builds will be viable, but then just chill and play the game. That way, when I do level up, it's still cool to take a deeper look at the cards and find synergies. Like, I think I think we've got in a slightly different kettle of fish with regards to that because we've got an audience that get to see us discover it. If we didn't have cameras on us and all of that, would it feel as... I mean, we would still do it, let's be honest. We would still 100% do it. But it probably won't be as exciting knowing that I guess other people aren't seeing our incredibly incorrect reactions to maybe how something would work or something like that, right?
Well, I mean, we did that with Frosthaven. We didn't record the playthroughs, and we spent the whole campaign without looking at them, other than the unboxing experience and like I wonder what's coming, and so we weren't even creating content around our reactions to what I get at level 5 and blah blah blah, other than little snippets on the pod. So yeah, 100%. I think that that's what we would play. I would anyway, like because I think that it's kind of like it happens in a lot of games where you'll open it up and there's a tech tree and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to get to the end of this eventually. And I don't want to spend an hour reading it now and then not have anything to just to like discover. Um, I like the making a choice as you go through. I guess some games you've got to plan, you've got to plan a skill tree, blah, blah, otherwise you end up bricking your character. So if it's that kind of situation, sure. But I do like at least the first run through of just like, I don't really know what anything does. And I'm going to be surprised when I hit the next level and go, ooh, that's an interesting decision. Okay, cool. That's, I see where this is going. And yeah, that stuff is kind of fun.
I think you're splitting into two camps. One of I want to play the game and I want to win. Like as a group, we've invested a bunch of money into this game. We're going to invest a bunch of time into this game. Let's do it properly. Let's play on a high difficulty. That's satisfying, right? There's a level of satisfaction that come with doing that. But the other way, where you don't discover any of that, that's a whole other level of satisfaction in that you are constantly being drip fed the surprises as you're playing the game. It's almost like an advent calendar. So I think one is you hit with it all at the start and you get to enjoy the game, and the other part is you're reading a book, you're getting the tidbits of surprises as you're playing, and you're constantly being fed dopamine over and over again and have things to look forward to because it's the unknown and there's no right or wrong way of playing it. I think both are completely fine. It's we're definitely leaning into one more than the other.
Yeah, and I think thinking about that now, the way you're describing that as like the drip feeding that dopamine or that discovery as you go through is outside of the characters. It's also something I think from memory, Frosthaven did a lot more of than say Gloomhaven did. What I first said anyway, because if without going into doing a Frosthaven review, but if you think about like you start with the town and you unlock things through that town slowly where you get these kind of new things. There's events. I wonder what that section event is, right? I don't know what's going to happen there. Outside of the normal events, but then there's also all these other mechanics that come into play. And then even because you unlock characters through buildings, right? It's not like I'm looking at my PQ now in second ed and I know what character I'm getting. Now, let's assume I didn't know what the character was. I just knew the symbol and it was going to be new. That's fine, but I know I'm getting a character. Whereas it in Frosthaven, it was like you're getting a building, right? You don't know what building it is, and that building's going to do something. And you also don't know whether that building's going to unlock a character or not. So that was one of the that was one of the reasons I liked the Frosthaven character unlocking system, is because it was always a surprise when you got one. But I get why people, and I am also probably in this camp as well, is that like I like the fact that when you finish a character, you get to start a new character that's new, not like, oh, I guess I'll go pick up one of the starters. I like that system. But yeah, so Frosthaven kind of did lean a little bit more into like forcing you to be drip fed these hits,
Mm.
because unless you look at all the buildings ahead of time, or look at all the unlock criteria for the classes, you're gonna be getting those things. Whereas and I'm sure there's more, some of that in second ed. Like I feel like there is, and even with like the factions, we've experienced a little bit where it was like, oh, when you've done X and when you've done Y, read this thing, and we're going to be like, oh, okay, well, we're probably going to be introduced to something and get some extra mechanic, which is cool, right? So it means we can't just see everything and go, okay, well, now we'll just attack move till the end of the game. But we just add an extra element on top of that with each class we play. So
No.
yeah, yeah, I mean that's just the way, right? With kind of legacy games, the whole, and this type of legacy game is have hidden stuff so that you are not just kept interested, but you kind of keep getting these ooh moments, and they're the cool ones, right? Ooh, wow, that's cool. That's really cool. Like I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
So, and we'll talk a bit more about that when we compare the first few scenarios from Frosthaven, because like we had a really big one of those in that was completely, I just didn't see coming.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. So
No, it's well said. And I think that, not to keep banging on about it, but the Frosthaven, everyone talks about the Frosthaven character unlock versus the Gloomhaven character unlock, and everyone has their 2 cents. And some people literally, it seems to be quite split. A lot of people like one versus the other. I think the Frosthaven one, because of all the things you mentioned, especially with the buildings and the envelopes and the calendar system and all of that kind of stuff, and not knowing when you get the character, suits the style that we're going for from a, the dopamine kind of unboxings, treasure hunting, that kind of thing, as opposed to just knowing straight up what we're getting. So it suits the amDirt play style for the show, I think, in Frosthaven.
yeah, definitely.
Rognan does add to it. Glad to hear that there will be more talk about the utility slot. And we won't go too much into this, but Gaz does have stuff to say about it. I think you mentioned at some point item 228 from Frosthaven could benefit from it. I don't know what that is. I think you've got that there. Do you think items like 57 and 186, 174, 181, and 247, all from Frosthaven, could be a good fit? Not all of them are. Weak, just situational. Gaz.
Yeah, all right. I'll go through this real quick because I know it's not everyone's favorite topic, but I do still think that it's a goer. So just for everybody, the item 228, which you mentioned, that's the extendable pole. So that's open a door at range 2. And I think for a lot of the others, I think all of those are too powerful. So just to go through them really quickly, and Deda, you'll know these when I say them. I believe 57 is a shovel. I think that has the ability to be insane. As a one-hander, it feels bad because it's a really important slot, but it also can be game-changing, right? 186, I believe, is a wild growth seeds, which again puts an obstacle. Again, like that can just be that hex that mazes things and makes the game different. And there's also a bunch of characters that use it. Plus, it's a bag slot, and bag slots aren't as competitive. This is the thing with the utility slot. Not so much about bag slots and having these cool new power items so you can put more bag slots in. It's more about these hand or head items that have these cool effects that you just they just can't compete with what you probably need to take. Just going through some of the others, like magnetic cape, no way. I had that. It's bonkers, right? Like
Magnetic
that's the teleport
cape, really, as a utility?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I had that, and like that. Yes, as a utility ability, it is 100% would fit into something. But I used that because I got it for free, and I don't remember what character it was on. But it was crazy. Like I used it. It solved so many problems. The translocation rod, which is the swapping one, again, like too powerful to have an ability on hand of just like, let's do it, because it can just mess stuff up. But one I do agree with, they've got, and this is a spoiler if you haven't played Frosthaven, so I mean, the trainer's net,
Okay.
so the Pokemon net. But this goes into something I mentioned in the Discord when this conversation came up, is that quest items, like PQ quest items, I feel should go into this because there's this element of like your agency of taking an item is taken away. And we found this with hopefully this isn't a spoiler for our thing because you talked about it before, but Phil's PQ in our current game in second edition is to use a certain item. He's only got one bag slot, right? And the nature of our party is he's used his bag slot to take a healing potion, which is great because we're a bit of a squishy party, and that's the safer way of playing on +1, blah blah blah. Being forced to then, well, he can't move his PQ forward unless he takes his thing. It's just a little bit of a feels bad. And he's actually said, as soon as I hit level 3 and I have a second bag slot, I'm going to take this thing and start progressing it, which is great. But that's why I feel like there should be almost a, like a way to have these items. And it doesn't have to be a utility slot. This is just on PQ items that doesn't require. It's like, here's an extra thing. It's not game breaking, but it's going to progress your character's progression or the campaign progression.
I agree with you up until the point with Phil's PQ item because that is a bag slot as opposed to the net, which is a hand slot. I think that because at the end of the day, these PQs that we do have, they're the starting ones. I think there's either 10 or 12 at the very beginning, and there's a high chance that you get this one once you're at Prosperity 2 or 3, which immediately will bump you up to 2 bag slots when you roll a new character. Or something like that. I think if it's in a hand slot, it's definitely way more feels bad, man. Especially if it's a weapon. There was one I had in Frosthaven, which was like that. That is horrible, right? But
there was a two-hander as well, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But if it's a bag slot, I think it does. I'm willing to let that slide a little bit. It sucks. It's a tough choice, but that gets rectified as you continue playing. That becomes a bit more of a timing thing, whereas you can't just suddenly grow a third hand.
Yeah, well, yeah, most characters can't. So, yeah, and look, I think some of the examples of without going, and I'm happy to talk about this in another time. Maybe I'll put a post up or something somewhere that goes into detail because we did talk about this a fair bit on one of the other episodes of our pod where we went into the items. But things like a simple charm, which takes that's a headpiece that takes -1 out of your deck. That I feel like fits in that space where it's a power increase, but it's competing against so much other really good stuff that one -1 out of your modifier deck isn't really that impactful. There's a hand item. The scavenger's magnet is basically you can eat grass to loot an adjacent loot item, like loot token. Again, as a hand item, it's not broken. So even if you use that 3 times in a scenario, so they got 3 extra gold. At the end of the day, they had to create grass. So again, it's this kind of thing where it's like, that would be cool if someone had the ability to do that. And then the last one that I was looking at from my big list I made ages ago was the examination glass. So this is like after you draw a loot card, you can draw an additional one and keep one, place the other on top or bottom. So again, you're not even gaining any more loot. You're just slightly refining the loot in a game in a system that wanted to give you 5 different types of loot. And sometimes you're really hunting one type. Right. And it's not all the time, but occasionally you do really. That's one of those things where you're like, oh, it would be great to be able to pick that up so that I can slightly better increase the odds of me being able to get the one thing I need that there might only be 1 or 2 of in this entire loot deck, rather than that person now has to get all of the loot because they need 1 piece of metal and there's only 3 pieces of metal in the deck. So it's just little stuff like that that's not going to really break it. But as Dwarf said, everything has its place. Everything is powerful in its own right, and I understand that. So yeah, that's probably enough on this because I think people aren't that interested in listening to me go on about it. But again, to reiterate, the whole point wasn't to tell the devs they should be putting in a new slot, item slot. It was more like there's some really cool shit that's been designed, both Frosthaven, and I'll do one of these lists for Gloomhaven once we get through most of the items. But I just want to see more of these cool little effects that really never get to see the light of day because they're just, at the end of the day, you are trying to win the scenario, and being able to loot an extra item at the cost of a hand slot and a leaf isn't really going to ever cut it unless you just got it out of a chest randomly. And you're like, hey, for the scenario I've got this item, and then you just vendor it as soon as you get back to town. So yeah, anyway, that's it.
I think it'll actually be really interesting to get one of the devs, maybe someone who is very, very familiar with the design of the item system, and actually having there's a whole topic there, a big conversation about item design and what actually, what that process looks like. How does something get to the status that it's at? And, how do they deal with the power creep factor when it comes to items? Because at the end of the day, like if you look at a guide, I'm almost guaranteeing that there's probably like 30% of the items in the overall game are the ones being utilized in some degree, and the rest are being completely ignored due to power creep. And how do they combat that? Or is that a design choice? And they're just like, you know what? We just wanted to flex our muscles a little bit and say, hey, there's this really cool item out there. We know it can't compare to an Amulet of Life, but it's there, just in case someone wants to play around with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think Frosthaven tried to do that a little bit with the crafting system because you were getting the crappy version and then working up to it. But that just so much always fell into the point where from mid-game onwards, you just crafted the second or third level version of it because you usually had the mats for it. So it was like this, it didn't really mean that you had to use the crappier version. So it wasn't, Anyway, it's interesting. I think the items are a really big part of the Haven series, and I think they do a great job with them. Like there's so much variety, and they do add that little spice and little flavor. But yeah, I just love like kind of these cool little abilities, and I love to see him in the game more.
Pete, once I was playing a class you haven't played yet that had a lot of grant abilities within a certain range. One player in my group intentionally would go fast and move out of range and thought it was funny that I had dead turns when he did that. I haven't played with him in a few years now. Like, I'm all for being a clown, right? You're going to get a reaction and a laugh. If you couldn't tell, that's, I do enjoy that. But even I can read a room to a point, right? And I think that's really important. I think that a bit of self-awareness wouldn't go astray for some people out there. Just, at the end of the day, it is a cooperative game. You're there to have fun, but not there to ruin the fun of others.
Yeah, well said.
All right, perfect. Tiny said, just meet more often. This is, I think, how we were solving Tiny's group issue about only playing once a month. How did I not think of that? I will tell them to get their shit together. Don't mind the fact that my planning is one of the issues here. Don't mind it at all. I really liked your scenario recap story. You have a storytelling gift. Cling clangs in the chat. Thank you. And this gives me an idea. I'm opening the recaps to our audience. If you want to be a part of the podcast and let your creativity shine, give me the heads up and say you want to write the week's recap. So I'll give it the nod and you can, give me the script when you're done. So I'll read it out during next week's podcast. And that way it won't sound, biased or from my point of view. Just do what I do, which is watching the playthrough, take a few notes as you go, give it a decent amount of length, but not necessarily round by round. I'll make any adjustments I feel I need to, such as length. And I'll read it out the following week when leading into our scenario discussion. So that way we both won't know what we're about to read into. But I'd love to actually see what people, what they write from their point of view in the playthrough. But if no one responds to this, I'll just keep doing it. And but if you do it, it'll give me one less task to do. And it'll allow for members from our community to add to the show. So I just think that'll be potentially very cool.
Yeah, that would be fun to hear what other people think.
I have a feeling that the balance of who screws up what will shift slightly back to the center.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to suddenly be less called out for cucking people on a regular basis. Like Gareth moved 2, Gaz moved 2 in round 1. And this is where the cucking began. All right, so less of that.
All right, Satire, let's get on to your events for the week. So we had city event number 1. The Merchants Guild is sponsoring a special exhibition at the University Museum, and we've been hired as guards protecting the various artifacts being displayed. Some of the items we're watching include an ancient suit of armor made of thousands of steel links, which was originally discovered near the city of Demon's Gate, which sounds really cool. Maybe that's the next version of the game. We listened to the curator explain the origins of the chainmail and how it used to belong to an ancient leader who apparently never fell in battle due to his incredible luck. I noticed Gaz turned to give me a hopeful side-eye, but with the experience of an exhausted parent, I quickly shake my head, much to his disappointment. At the end of our shift, we accept our payment for doing the security job at +3, mind you, and the curator packs up the exhibit and heads towards their next showing. Before we can go spend our money on grog, we spot a steel link on the ground, which clearly detached itself from the ancient armor we were guarding, and before we know it, the exhibit is already down the street getting further away. We must decide if we want to quickly catch up to them to return the missing piece or hold on to the ring for good luck. So we did our standard amDirt vote, which I think we all unanimously decided to keep it. No. Yep. Yes. Yeah, I can't remember anymore. So we smushed the softened steel into a makeshift ring, thinking that the original owner would be proud knowing it will see battle once again. So we gained 10 collective gold and gained the steel ring, which I believe was it's a jewelry piece, bag slot. When you would get hit, I don't have it here, but it's when you get hit for, I think, 4 damage. You can negate 4 damage from burning it, I think, which is pretty cool. And then we ran to that, you have it, no, you have it, no, you have it kind of thing. And then because one of us is leveling much faster than the others, I guess I'll make use of it much quicker. Cool event. Yeah. I'm really liking the writing. I'm liking the fact that they are I'm used to seeing a lot of the road events, at least from some of the older games, just be a paragraph or two. They are squishing a lot of text onto these cards and making a lot of use out of the real estate, right? They're painting a wonderful picture.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think the writing and a little bit of the immersion in there also works. Like this idea that we are attending these events and stuff like that, which I think was evident in Frosthaven as well. But yeah, you're right. It is being well crafted, and I love little building things dropped in there. Right. So you said Demon's Gate. Now I don't know if that's going to come up in Gloomhaven. I don't know if it's going to come up Next Haven or whatever it is. People are probably listening to this going like, "Oh, you idiots!" It's mentioned like 45 times across all the other games. But either way, right? Like it's cool having these little things that I don't really know about, and it just goes, "Oh, there's a place, right? There's a place that there's this dude millennia ago that wore this armor."
Never nulled.
But then, pardon?
He never nulled.
He never nulled.
Maybe
that's
that'd
right.
be one of the classes. Maybe it's like a prequel or something like that.
Yes.
And you don't get to play it.
But yeah, no, I can't play it because I have to null. If I played that character, the universe will just break, right? But the decision though, and then we've talked a lot about this over the last 120 episodes of are the decisions, do they feel meaningful, or are you just picking left or right? And this is the kind of thing that regardless of what you think the reward might be, the decision of like, do you want to be selfish and keep it, or do you want to return it to its like rightful owners, can be more of a moral thing. Like you get to bring in elements of like, as a human, what do I think? As a character, what do I think? Then you can think about reward wise. So anything that gives multiple aspects of how people will consider the right or what they want to do is great, because it means that it splits opinion, right? And they're the ones that I think the events, even though they might not seem, and this one was good, but you can have ones that don't seem as flavorful, but they're the ones where the decisions matter a lot more. Rather than, I know, and it's only because it's in recent memory, but we had a couple of those in Crimson Scales that were, you get to a fork in the road. Do you want to go into the forest or do you want to go in the mountains? And you're like, based on no information, I'm just basically picking left or right. And one of them's like, bad shit happened. The other one's like, be blessed and get XP. And you're like, well, that just feels bad, right? So yeah, this style I'm enjoying, and yeah, so far 10 out of 10 for the events. They've all felt really good. So set the bar high.
Yeah,
set the bar high. Hopefully they can keep it up.
Yeah, I like one thing that I'm taking away from what you just said was the impact of making the decision between A or B. The fact that they've now incorporated, and I'm jumping the gun here, but now that they've incorporated the reputation system amongst 3 new factions, right, that we're building reputation against, that even heavier impacts, the decisions that you're making, because that's also in the back of your mind, because it doesn't necessarily, from what I can see with the limited ones that we've seen, show you which reputation necessarily it's going to affect. Right? It doesn't spell it out for you. You may be able to guess and deduct that, but it's one more thing you have to think about. And I think that just having the reputation system for those 3 different factions then gives the satire team way more like fun to play around when it comes to the events and what they're going to do with it and the impact it's going to have on, any given party.
Yeah, it's a good point, because in original Gloomhaven and maybe Frosthaven. I know the Reputation bar. I think maybe that was only in Gloomhaven, but yeah, that's right, because it was morale and the other ones. But it was just general reputation, so you could kind of work out like, oh, is this going to be seen as a good thing or as a bad thing, right? But now there's the chance of like, oh, is that particular faction that maybe we're trying to level up? Right? Are they going to see this as a good thing? And that could become an argument, right? You see a merchant from blah, blah, blah faction. Do you want to rob them or do you not want to not want to rob them? Well, the greed comes into play. But if you guys are heavily trying to farm that rep, right, and get that up, then it's probably going to sway you the other way, which
Mm.
again makes it for an interesting decision. And it's like, ah, no, we want the stuff anyway. So yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. The actual system is going to make things a bit more interesting, especially as we get a little bit later, because we haven't really been introduced to them much yet. We don't really know why we would want to be push one or the other. But I think as we get more into the whole lore and and immersed in the world and Gloomhaven, the city, those decisions will start being more interesting. Be like, oh no, we guys, we can't steal off this dude. Like, we need them to like us.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, we got bars to move. We had road event 19. On our way to the Frozen Hollow, we spot a Valrath along the road, walking toward us from the opposite direction. The poor bugger looked exhausted, as does his Hristek, which we can only assume is his wife, also looking like she will collapse at any moment. He politely explains that the pair ventured a little too far and are now out of supplies and wants to bum a meal from us if possible. We agree and make camp for the night. During the evening, the Valrath goes to share his sack with us, and upon unpacking its contents, a lockbox tumbles out and rolls across the ground. He suddenly goes all Gollum on the mishap, but not before we notice the fabled symbol of the fork in the sink etched on one of the sides. He yells out the profanity, "Silly me," and pretends like nothing happened. And now the situation is awkward because he could have just left it on the ground and collected it later, and we probably wouldn't have said anything about it, but the overall shifty behavior is now eating at our curiosity, which is also possibly what he wanted as an attention seeker, writing "shit day" as a Facebook status and then not wanting to discuss it with anyone who responds. So if we ignore it, it might actually eat at his ego and he'll want to talk about it. This is a snapshot of how my actual brain works, and yes, it's exhausting. Later on in the night, we have to work out how affected we are by the situation, and instead of just flat out casually asking, "Hey, that box that fell, hope it wasn't fragile. Do you need me to have a look at it and see if it needs to be mended?" One of our actual options is that we could just open it while he's not paying attention, which is totally normal. Or we could just let it go and ask about his mission, which we couldn't give two shits about, as we want to know what's in the fucking box, but we don't want him to know that we want to know. So we asked about his mission, to which he explains he's a scout and he works for a secret group who'll bring salvation to Gloomhaven. Yep, he just blabs out to a bunch of strangers he meets randomly in the wilderness. A huge secret. It would also like, if we would also like to bring salvation to our great city, just look for his group's secret symbol, the fork in the sinks. So we gain one fork, and that was our first instance of, I think, meeting one of the factions, we've gained rep from maybe the events, but this one had a bit more meaning. And Gaz, I actually went to the back of the rule book, and there's a section, like a glossary of some of the things, and they actually mentioned the three factions here with a very small paragraph for each one, which, because we were talking about how we're going to get introduced to them. Well, they're kind of in the book.
Oh, okay, so we're supposed to read it.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to read that book?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I did.
Okay.
So the three factions are the Bird People, or the Merchants Guild. So they control most of the governments that make up human civilization, but Gloomhaven is still ruled by the military for now. So the Shield People, which is the military. So Gloomhaven is on the frontier of civilization, and the frontier is a dangerous place. The military runs Gloomhaven and strives to keep it safe, although some are unhappy about the harsh rules they employ to make that happen. And then we have the Fork People, who are the Sect, a mysterious group who serves a powerful individual concerned about the rise in cultists summoning demons. The Sect wants to save Gloomhaven, but can be a little vague on exactly what that means. So, how do you feel about the three groups? I mean, military and merchant, they kind of sound a bit boring, a bit cliche, etc. So I'm going to assume most groups out there are going to go hard into Sect.
Yeah, totally. Like, let's side with the secret society cult people who are going to save Gloomhaven in mysterious ways. Yeah, like
I have a feeling it's heavily breadcrumbed that that's the one that because that's the most interesting one, which makes me think that we're not going to do that. But at the same time, I mean, we're individually voting on our events, so
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think the thing is as well, we haven't looked at the items that you get, right? That you
no.
unlock through the factions, which I don't know if I would say you're probably allowed to, but in amDirt style, we won't because we're idiots and we play on hard mode, right? So, yeah, I'm keen to know what we get from all of them.
Go merchants. I've decided to lock in one. I'm all about the merchants because they work hard
Um,
for the money.
because they work hard for the money and they got birds. You
Yeah.
like birds?
Oh,
Yeah.
hang on. I don't like birds.
Um, you love birds. You used to play birds all the time. That was your favorite. Um, uh, don't know. I would say the merchants as well, but that's boring now that you've already
It is,
said
but
it.
that
And I
means it's
don't
probably
want to pick
not.
the
It's probably going to
shield.
have the best scenarios and the best unlocks and the best, the coolest like gold boss of Merchant Land.
Yeah, all right. Fuck it. Let's do this. Let's like hard farm bird rep, right? Like let's just get these bird merchants to the top of the food chain.
Yeah. Message
Yeah,
or question
done.
to the devs and Dwarf and anyone else who knows, and probably all of our listeners as well, because everyone knows more than us. How important is it that we aim to spike one of these reps? Or does it still kind of work itself out if we go all over the place?
Well, on the Gloomhaven sheet that was provided, it's got a thing that you read out, I think once you get to 6 and then you've completed a scenario or something like that. So it definitely seems like we should be able to level up most of them a little bit to it.
What if they
But
keep
we
going up and
probably
down, like between 4 and 5, and then one goes up, the others go down, and we never actually end up
Yeah, that's a
meeting a
good point.
threshold?
Well, I mean, so far we haven't found anywhere to pick one or the other. But I guess that's probably the case. At the moment, it was, this event was, it sounded like kind of get fork rep or get loot because he's probably not going to like us or potentially reduce it. But I imagine that there will be some scenarios that are going to be like, do you give the merchant guy money or do you give the other guy money? And then picking which one you want rep. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, it's an exciting new system.
Yeah.
We also haven't had any instances of
It is.
losing rep either, I guess, so.
That's true.
All right, scenario 3, Frozen Hollow. We're chilling at the local derelict hangout at the Crooked Bone, where we are told there's a magic ghost who can probably enlighten us on the recent happenings uncovered within the Runius crypt. As we enter, we notice it's not really a tavern at all, and it has been converted into a sort of library full of crappy-looking shelves and notebooks. Before we can venture further inside, a gruff, hardened voice booms out of nowhere advising the establishment we're snooping around is currently closed. We spot a translucent figure toward the back of the room descending a ladder, but aren't told exactly how they are descending it, whether it be slowly rung by rung or if they kind of just float down it. And if it's floating, why exactly do they bother having a ladder to begin with? Aether's logic. It is then explained to us that Aethers are an especially rare being whose body and mind are split across multiple planes of existence, which is pretty damn cool. So I guess it was rung by rung. It was at this exact moment that the narrator realized they fucked up, because this was Haven-renowned main character Hale. And she ended up sounding like, and I quote, a chain-smoking truck stop grandma, which I believe no one saw coming, not even us. Hale mentions that she's a researcher, and we tell her about our brave escape from the crypt, the cult activity within, and the warnings of the gloom. She responds by laughing at us, mocks our request for aid, and tells us to bugger off. And now, you know what? I'm glad she sounds the way she does. That'll teach her for being so rude, the silly bitch. As we turn to leave, she reveals her split personality by all of a sudden deciding we're not bullshitting her, and that the portal we found could be corrupted, so we shouldn't get close to it without a magic orb. The orb known as the Orb of Durex will protect us from getting sucked into any corrupted portals in the future, but first we need to obtain one. So she tasks us with retrieving the orb, while she will begin working on the gloom problem she so viciously mocked mere moments ago. We follow her directions towards the Copperneck Mountains and arrive at a tunnel just as a blizzard starts really picking up. Within the tunnel, we notice doggo tracks inside and immediately know that with our squishy lineup, things are about to get hairy. The scenario, just on that, any comments on the introduction to Hale? Did you know, you kind of guessed that was going to happen and you didn't have time to stop me?
Yeah, I had a like very good feeling from the previous scenario when they were like, "You should go speak to this person," because I feel like this is similar-ish to Gloomhaven One storyline, and I remember meeting Hale. So yes, I had a really good idea that it was going to be Hale. What I didn't have any idea about was that you were going to do that voice. Like if you had said, "Hey, this is the voice I'm going to do for this character that we're meeting," I probably wouldn't have stopped you, um, but I would have enjoyed the fact that I knew that he had chosen a main story arc question that's going to come up consistently through the entire game.
Yeah. If you see, I think it was
Yeah.
a good example of when you were reading out the city event, I was tuning out left, right, and center. And it's just the way my brain works. It's very hard to focus. So even as I'm reading out the introduction, a lot of it's not going in. So I couldn't even see any of the, I saw barkeep and tavern, and I was like, oh, let's create a tavern wench. Let's create like a barkeep kind of person. And that's kind of where, yeah, I got completely blindsided. So good work, team. Good work. The scenario is complete
Yeah.
when all.
But I mean, for people who missed out, sorry, for people who missed out Crimson Scales playthroughs, one of the highlights of that was Deddy making out voices for the random characters. So that I'm really actually glad that we aren't using something like Fortella in this playthrough, and we get to see that with your voices for this one. And I think it's just proved it by Kale. So yeah, let's go.
I was gonna say, yeah, I can always, because the videos are up, right? I've got the videos. I can just record the audio from those moments and then just set a playlist on Spotify, like Detella, and then when people get up to that bit, they can be like, "Oh, let's use Detella," and then play it.
That's right. Well, that's a good point actually, because you're actually just reading what's in there, and so we could just create our own voice scripting Fortella thing that we could package together for people, and then they can play. So
I feel sorry for everyone. All right, the scenario is complete when all enemies in it are dead. At the end of that round, we read a thing. There are 3 tiles making up a 2-tile long zigzag corridor into a final rectangular room. Obstacles are plenty within. Monsters, we have frost demons making their second appearance. We have living spirits and hounds. So the special rules were there weren't any. Roll call. All of us are level 2. So Phil level 2 on Silent Knife, Gaz level 2 on the Mind Thief, Daddy was under level 2 Tinkerer, and we did this on +1, so it was scenario level 2. How it went. This is the recap if you weren't sure. This is the part that if you would like to write this, make sure you watch the playthrough, write it up for it, and send it to me, and I will stick it into the run sheet. Recently crowned King Deddy unpacks his harmless contraption, to which Gaz gifts Detty a brand new miniature. And I'll show you a few photos here for the video listeners. And it is just so amazing. And Deddy proudly places it in front of the hungry wolves, ready to be fist pawed. He backs up his play by granting everyone around him a shield 1, which should be enough to deal with the pesky canines. Gaz uses this distraction to force one of the elite hounds to absolutely turn on its nearest companion with a double attack, one of which, drum roll please, misses. Gaz, any comments?
sigh is all I have to say. I can't escape Knowles even when I use someone else's deck.
Nope. After the party recover from this incredibly obvious outcome, the hounds close in on the helpless dwarf, and whilst the Tinkerer channels his shielding ability, they munch on the helpless contraption with 1 bite landing a crit, leaving the brave little dwarf on 1 HP. Brutal opening. The Silent Knife springs into action and immediately starts dismembering the dogs, while in the distance 2 living spirits start to close in. Gaz uses newly acquired card Hostile Takeover to insanely brilliant effect, killing off one of its brethren and then maneuvering it towards the elite living spirit and pulling a +2, which was just enough to one-shot it. See, luck goes around in circles. The party moved towards the end of the first room with the Silent Knife using newly acquired pre-patched ability Open Wounds to dismantle the last living spirit. The dev team noticed this and immediately tweeted out an emergency patch fixing this broken card by adding an additional restriction on the wound, taking effect in the next scenario. Anyway, the group rests. Well, no they don't. They immediately open the door to the second corridor and have a peek inside. 4 frost demons and a lone living spirit greet them on the other side, and they are quickly closed in on the party, with Phil ducking back into the previous room. Before the group can prepare for the assault, brave or foolish dwarf charges in to greet the demons and is quickly cut down Obi-Wan style as Daddy goes, "No!" and starts blasting them with his net shooter. Phil walks in and delivers one of many Philtalities, the new term for whenever he lands a crit, and the group begin the recovery process as they make preparations for the final room. Just outside the final room, they can hear growling and spiriting, and the faint whisper of a loot chest saying, "Loot me." Gaz summons the gnawing horde, and the party strategize a plan of bolting into the room and how they plan to deal with whatever is behind the door. But Phil opens the door, and the group realize the enemies have also strategized how they were going to deal with us. And their plan was way better than ours. The Frost Demons, Living Spirits, and Hounds counter us perfectly, which ends up causing our party to act inefficiently as the monsters head down the corridor, blocking up the entrance. This is bad. The brave Silent Knife and Mind Thief decide they need to do something, and they launch themselves into the fray, Aragorn and Gimli style, leaving the Tinkerer and the Rats behind to deal with the corridor threat. The Tinkerer, who was initially impressed with his team's move, immediately regrets their decision and now has to work out how to deal with the blocking doggos. But not before a little bit of cranking as he snipes out the Frost Demon, dealing a bunch of damage. One by one, the Living Spirits get taken down by the Silent Knife and Mind Thief, but for the poor rat Splinter, he takes a brutal blow, burning 2 cards in the process, which seems to be a bit of a pattern. Back in the tunnel, the Hounds outmaneuver the Tinkerer and Rats, which causes the Rats to get pasted once again. The Tinkerer lights up its flamethrower and with the assistance of the Mind Thief, destroy the remaining Hounds. The Silent Knife blows up the soul-injured Frost Demon, and all of a sudden, the camera, amongst the chaos, films in slow motion. It zooms in on the Mind Thief, frantic looks appearing on his face, blood-curdling screams and clanging metal occurring all around it. He's close to exhaustion. He spots the nearby treasure chest, which is being guarded by a carefully laid trap. Without a thought, he launches himself onto the trap, removing the threat from the board, and then winks at the Silent Knife before crumbling into the ground. The Silent Knife sees this, yells, "No!" before leaping over the rat corpse and looting the treasure chest. The Tinkerer back in the doorway, dealing with the last living spirit, also succumbs to not enough cards, and it's a one-on-one featuring a normal living spirit versus the crit monster himself, Phil. They charge at each other, and oh no, Phil crits the last living spirit. I guess it's all over. The Final Fantasy victory music plays, and the party achieved the victory. But at what cost? So, Scenario 3. What were your thoughts on how Scenario 3, well, not played out, but Scenario 3 as a whole?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I think it was challenging because Retaliate sucks. Wolves are like really shit and go early and do annoying things. So there was a lot of damage both coming out during the monsters' turns and our turns.
Yeah.
So I think from a interesting scenario layout and what you have to do, it was just move through the corridors and kill everything, which is kind of, you know, the vanilla Gloomhaven scenario. But I mean, you swap out those monsters and I think the scenario becomes really boring, right? Like if instead of wolves, they were living bones, instead of frost spirits, they were earth spirits, that just becomes like probably more of a, you need to push more damage through because things have shields and lots of health, but I don't really think that you feel threatened. So yeah, they spiced it up a bit with the monster choice, and I think that makes a big difference for you know, what's a 3-room kind of dungeon crawl.
Yeah, I think that I think we mentioned in scenario 1 and 2, it's almost like they're introducing different things to worry about instead of copying and pasting the same units, I guess, and in a slightly different layout. They've kind of gone, okay, cool. You've had, I mean, Frost Demons again was an interesting choice, but they're a pretty spicy threat. They've got Retaliate. You're introduced to a the horde, the swarm mentality in the Hounds, who are incredibly dangerous if they're next to allies. So they suddenly become a massive priority target, but they have Retaliate and they go fast. So they're going to be the first thing for a brand new party into the series. They're going to catch a lot of people out with how quickly they can go. They immobilize. They've got Retaliate. They get +2 if, you know, you're next to one of their allies and all that kind of stuff. And then you got Living Spirits who are at the back. They're ranged. They're sniping. So while you're dealing with all of that, they've also got the really low health but high shield. And we actually had this conversation at the start when we were setting up. Okay, how are we going to deal? We know there's living spirits. How are we going to deal with them? And we're looking at who's got pure damage. I don't. You know, who's got Pierce. Phil's got one, attached to a card. And then we were like, hang on, we got wound options, right? And the only other thing we were going to have to try and deal with was with poison application, because we've got heaps of that. But that involves high attacks and high rolls and not missing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's I think putting the hat on of someone who's new to Haven, right? That hasn't played through either of them. Learning what those monsters do and what the challenges are is interesting. I mean, wolves, as you said, go fast, hit reasonably hard, have that kind of that one or two cards. I don't know how many's in their deck of if they're next to an ally, then they get +2, which is a bit of a gacha, right? Like when you're like, oh, they're going to hit me for about 3. Like, let's say I'm playing on 0, they're going to hit me for about 3, and then suddenly 2 of them are there, and they're both now hitting you for 5. Like, there's a big swing there. Plus the retaliate, which hasn't really been. I know there was a couple of frost demons in scenario 2, so people may have encountered that. But then having these kind of squishy yet fast and hard hitting kind of monsters all swarm on them at the start for a new party, it's just like, oh shit, like this is its own puzzle. And again, we talked about this the last 2. Range characters really shine in that thing, so it's kind of giving every character the ability to kind of do a thing. You got a spell weaver at the start of this scenario that's say level 2. You've probably a couple of burn cards and all the wolves are dead, and you're not taking any retaliate damage, right? So you can probably manage that. The Tinkerer throws out the harmless contraption. The Spellweaver blows them up, and now suddenly that room's easy. But both of those players are like, hey, I got to do a cool thing there. So again, it still seems like it's building towards this like, hey, let's put some stuff in for everybody, which I think is really good. And then on the flip side, you got the living spirits, which are like the complete opposite, right? They're generally a bit slower. They don't hit very hard. They do some curses, which is new and annoying, from that perspective. But they have like heaps of shields. Like unless you've got pure damage or lots of pierce, you really struggle to get through that and kind of like do it in one hit. So again, it kind of allows characters that have some of those tools, but it also presents just a different problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think again, for monster choice, especially early on, it is really good. And it works well. I have no idea why those 3 monsters particularly are working together. I know the coalition between wolves, or hounds, sorry, frost demons and living spirits, but like, hey, whatever works for you.
No, exactly. Mechanics over reason, right?
Yeah.
The last room I think was a good intro, because I think we are still in the Frosthaven mindset. Well, I think we're still a little bit waiting for the Frosthaven gacha. So a lot of the Frosthaven scenarios, they don't allow you to doorway fight. There's always some, and I think it's just widely seen as the gotcha, which a lot of people hate. The luxury of Gloomhaven First Ed, where you can actually open a door and just pull back into a corridor. But the way that this one was done left us to, I think, cleverly prepare for the entrance of the room, because someone could have just opened it and run back, right? But we didn't know that. So we had prepped outside that last room, which looked like a nice big rectangular room. But it had obstacles right along the sides, so it became really narrow, and we didn't have a lot of room to play with. And then, of course, you open the door, and you've got, I think, the hounds have obviously really good movement. And I think the frost demons also have pretty decent movement. So that's where it kind of caught us out. And I think that's because we're not a very range-heavy lineup as well. It was actually probably one of the biggest challenges that we've had to face as they all came crashing out. And then once we were swarmed in there, like it got real scary, considering the rest of the scenario felt pretty cruisy and not too bad. We could have easily lost on this last room.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was presented, I think you mentioned in the recap, was like, Phil went in through the room and I went early, which I should have gone late. And I did think about going late, but I was just like, no, I'll go early because I'll also go into the room. But as you said, there was 4 living spirits where basically any hex within the room, they were all going to hit you.
I think attack 3s as well.
So that, yeah, I mean, there's a bit of RNG there and then they picked that. But that's a lot of damage if you go in. Then if you go in anyway and go like, all right, whatever, I'll take the damage and pick a target, you've either got to pick a living spirit, which has 3 shields and you're probably not going to do any damage to, or pick a wolf or a frost demon, which if you punch is going to do more damage to you. So, like, what's the right option here? It's like go in, die either on retaliate or from the spirits, or just do nothing. And that's kind of where I found myself. If I had gone late, then Phil would open the door. I think he went invisible or something like that. And then they all would have poured out, and then I could moved up and done some hitting. So yeah, I think from so far from the three scenarios we've done, this room is the biggest room challenge that we've faced because there was just so much damage output here, and we just didn't have the tools to. I don't say we didn't have the tools to deal with it because we obviously did because we finished it, but it felt very like, oh, none of this feels good. Like
No.
other than maybe Frank trying to snipe the Frosthaven, which was a good play. There didn't really seem to be a lot of like, oh, well, I'll just do this and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's more, I'll do this and there's probably going to be backlash from whatever I do. Hopefully the backlash isn't as bad as
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, it was good. It was kind of cool. And I really felt the +1. I think Phil said this towards the end of the playthrough. He's just like, this feels the right level of difficulty because you open a room like this, and on 0, I think it's hard, but we probably just cakewalk through it. But on +1, there is a lot of like, no, let's wait.
The number thresholds just are pushed up just into an uncomfortable kind of spot. And you're right. If it was to the ease of someone Phil going in and killing 2 living spirits just like that, and then you go in as well and you're not too scared, you can take a few hits and you're killing things as well. It's kind of like, but you can see in that playthrough video, you can see the laughing, the joking, etc. until that bit happens. And then we are all, there's that meme of sitting back and then, you lean forward when shit's getting serious. We all was sitting there just like getting real into it and real serious and planning, and, the turns were taking longer but in a good way, because we were trying to make sure that we didn't screw something up and that we didn't overlook something that was going to cost us the scenario, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was...
yeah, 100% agree. Yeah. So, no, it was I think a good end to a scenario, and like I said, this will not be memorable, and when we're doing a list of top 10, bottom 10, whatever, it's not going to make the list on either of those two things because it's just one of 100 odd scenarios that we played through. But the experience of playing through this one was fun. I think for exactly what it's trying to do, it was fine. It was exactly what it wanted to be.
Yep.
So, and it's kind of the scenario if you're really pushing it. Like if you were like hardcore super sweaty group and you're like, we're going to do everything on +2, or I don't know, can you go up to +3? Is +3 a thing, or is +3 the highest?
+3 is...
+3.
I don't know. I think scenario level 7 is as high as you can go.
Yeah. If you really wanted to hard push this, then this scenario again becomes really tricky because of all the I don't know what you'd call it, but the retaliate and the damage, the unpreventable damage essentially.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. So yeah, I think it's good.
It is good. What about hypothetical NPC named Ormi? If we had one of those, is this going to be like scenario 1 and 2? He gets munched by the wolves. He probably saves Dwarf.
Yeah. Saves Dwarf? What do you mean?
Oh, he probably runs ahead of Dwarf and because Dwarf comes out, but Dwarf, I don't know. It'd be...
Oh, yeah, he dies very quickly and Dwarf doesn't. Yeah, he becomes the new useless contraption, right? Harmless contraption, sorry. Yeah, I think for the same reason as I said earlier in the episode, I shouldn't have brought the rats because everything was going to kill them and they were going to kill themselves on everything, is exactly the same reason why Ormi has a shit time.
Yeah, okay. Is there a world where you've seen all of the cards, like I have too, but I can't remember them. Is there a world where the rats become doable even with retaliate heavy mobs that you can see?
Not at level 1 that I've seen. I haven't seen the 2 to 9.
You're level 2. You have hostile takeover.
Oh, sorry, 2. Okay, level 1 and 2. I haven't seen level 3 to 9. Yeah, no, not really. The problem with it is that it's not even so much the rats. So the reason the rats work is because I grant them additional attacks when I attack. So the only way to trigger it is to hit something that has retaliate, and then it also hits again. So it's not a buff number go up; it's buff frequency of attacks. So in a ideal, like in a normal kind of turn, it'll be 4 attacks, 2 from the rats and 2 from me, because it gets its activation. I go, I trigger, it hits. If we're hitting something to retaliate too, we're both taking 4 damage. That's just like it's just not worth it. It's like, attack 4 times and take 8 damage, right? Is a shit. So there might be stuff later on that lets them ignore or does some other things, but yeah, at the moment I don't know.
I'm just we're essentially launching into the end of Diaries at the moment. The other thing I was thinking of just then was how easy is it to move them or grant them movement? Because I can't see, and I'm sure the game's going to prove me wrong, a scenario where there's like every mob has retaliate. So in this particular one, is there a world where the rats come out early, but then they get pushed back towards the living spirits and it goes on them? Is that easy to kind of control and maneuver, or would that be quite difficult?
I've got one card that I think is like a move 2, and then you can grant an ally move 3, or it might be move 3, grant an ally move 2, one of the two. There's only one of it though. I do think they get a move when you play feedback loop, which I think is the like augment that lets you do the attack. And so on play ability is you do an attack and then they get to move. I think something like that. I'm probably misremembering. But so there's one consistent way that you can get them to move, and then there's one-off way that you can. So yeah, I think you're right. Like if there was a scenario that had an objective or an earth demon or something like that, right? Something that's a target that you could probably push them towards and then let the AI take over so that they focused on that non-retaliate thing. That's how I think you solve that puzzle. But when 2 of the 3 mobs in the scenario are retaliate, the only way I could have done it is if I jumped in past the wolves and then the next turn summoned and moved them over. But at that point, I'm very isolated and I'm squishing myself, and the rats might survive, but I probably don't. So,
okay. You've got like invis toys, but then that means that the rats probably don't survive. It sounds like, are you planning on when prosperity goes up and we start to see more and more items? You know how there have been items in the past of like Horn of Command, and I think there's a one that I think you can tap to give your summons a shield 1 or something like that. Are those things that you're planning on picking up, or would you still go a bit more centric on the actual Mind Thief itself?
Look, I'd consider it. It depends how much they were. Like I think I have a free hand slot. So if there was the shield totem thing that you can get, or I don't know about the Horn of Command. Maybe the Horn of Command could be good to like hit priority targets, especially because they do poison. So like you lose value when they're just hitting the same thing, even if there's 2 next to each other. They're horning it to hit the other ones because that just generally helps us. So yeah, I don't know. I have to wait and see how I go. What I start getting at level 3, whether they drop off a bit. Because and you're right. This kind of going into kind of class analysis and amDirt Diaries is the problem is that if I take the rats, then I kind of have to take feedback loop, which is the augment that goes with the rats. And neither of them, I mean, the rats are fine on their own, I guess, as just a move and attack and poison something, but they really shine once you can give them an additional free attack each turn. So that's why this scenario, when I chose to bring them, because I wanted to show off the new mini that I painted, I was like looking at my cards going like, man, this is 2 out of my hand, right, that I don't really want. And I knew that I wasn't going to use early. So I was really playing the bottoms of the cards are decent. I think they're just big moves. So that was okay. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of pathway. And I'm interested to see if more cards come out that support that, or if it's only ever going to be a 2-card investment. So it's like, go into a scenario where nothing has retaliate, great, bring these 2 cards in. Go into a scenario where a couple of things have retaliate, cool, they have to go out, right? And then I bring the augment that lets me attack at range 2, basically melee this way. That's the right selection for this thing if you're not trying to show off a new mini that you've just painted.
Yeah, okay. So now you're going to be a little bit more selective as to whether the rats come in, and it's purely probably based on retaliate, right? That's literally the only thing. In fact, if you unlock a card and it's similar to the Bone Shaper one where it becomes a permanent persistent that allows your summons to ignore retaliate, you're probably set.
Yes and no. Like the only problem with that is that now I'm playing an augment out, a rats out, and then a persistent out. I'm like down to 7 cards to make one thing work. So there would have to be another scaling thing to make that, or I have to invest in enhancing the rats or something. Like it really is a path that I'd have to actively choose, and then yeah, it would make sense. But you'd have to see the benefits of it more than just like ignoring this one thing, because again, without feedback loop, there's not really any point bringing the rats other than if you just want to throw a summon out that's just going to like attack move the map.
Okay. There's no perks, are there? There's no perks that are centered around the rat. You've got the one that when you actually take over an enemy, you can use your AMD, but there's nothing centered around the rat, because that actually could have been a fun little non-AMD option for maybe a 2-ticker, or if you're going to be ridiculous, 3-ticker, whereas the rat gets an extra 2 health and ignores retaliate or something like that. The problem is it's quite niche, right? So if you don't go in on that, it's just completely wasted.
Yeah. So yeah, look, it'll be interesting to see. I think I just have to be more like, yeah, this is or isn't the right scenario for it.
Yeah, okay. I completed my mastery, which was, I think, dubbed the easiest mastery in the game, which is to use 11 different burn actions. And now with the second ed version of how masteries work, unless it's specified, you can do them over multiple scenarios, which is great. I am terrible at masteries, and I just, for some reason, can't seem to. I don't know. Maybe it's a want thing. I don't want to center a whole thing around a scenario based around trying to achieve something, because I'd feel bad if things started to fall apart, right? And I don't feel confident enough to do that. But this one was nice and easy, and it's given me a check mark. And I'm glad it's set and forget, because there are some of those burn cards that I brought that I probably won't bring, too often, like Flamethrower and all of that. I mean, I might for the initiative, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's been good. I leveled up, which is really good. I put a poll out, which has hit over 220 votes or whatever for my next card. It's looking heavily like I'm going to be getting Teleportation Pad, which I'm very excited for. I'm gonna have.
Yeah, well, that's the fun one, right? Like that's the fun big brain one where it's gonna be like fine, and then you're gonna do these like, whoa, I can do portals, right?
Yeah,
like yeah.
Someone made a comment actually on the poll. I think it was Vessi, said something about me not having, in that particular scenario we just did, because every single one I've gone into, I've changed the cards that I'm bringing. Half of it was to achieve the mastery, but I actually didn't have a lot of move options in that particular scenario. I think a lot of the move 4s I either didn't bring or I burnt. So I started realizing I had a lot of move 2s, and the bottom of the teleportation pad is a teleport 4, which would completely solved my issue in that last room. So that alone is quite desirable. And I probably would have picked that card, but I wanted to see whether or not other people wanted to see me pick that card or wanted to screw me in, and pick the one
full support.
Well, I mean, I'd go full into that just to support the rat build thing, right? It could be our rat, like when I res it. Yeah.
I think we talked a little bit about this at the end of the playthrough, but I think the challenge for me with anybody picking Stam Booster or whatever it's called, right, where essentially what the bottom is you get back a lost card, someone else gets back a lost card, is that there's no inherent benefit or like what's the incentive? There's no incentive for you to play that other than, hey, it progresses the scenario along. You can only do so much of that. You can only put so many cards with the word that say just heal X, right? Or grant ally Y before the kind of half of your game, half of your scenario is literally just like making sure that everyone else completes the scenario. Right. Yeah. And that's one of the inherent problems with I'll say support in inverted commas, because it's not quite the thing, but when you leans too far into it, that's the issue. And that's where I saw this card. I'm like, this is just purely everyone else have more fun.
Yeah. The what do you call it? Bounce back, or the only incentive is the XP, right? And luckily the Tinkerer gets an insane amount of XP. So that means I get more cards, which can then help you guys. Or even, yeah, so I can sort of see that there. Perk wise, I'm looking at the options between support dirty and, you know, I still don't have a reason to really start chewing into my AMD. I don't really feel like that's going to be warranted just based on how often I am attacking and actually am drawing the AMD. I am enjoying keeping you guys up. I never thought I'd say that, but I think because the game is really fun and the scenarios have been really interesting, and watching us struggle, I felt a sense of purpose, and therefore I haven't minded. I don't mind playing the contraption. I don't mind playing the shield card, and also the heals and potatoes and rod and all that kind of stuff. It's actually been a lot more fun than I thought. Otherwise, I would have transitioned a while back. So no, it's actually really enjoyable.
But yeah, and I think like, again on that, that's because they're decisions you're making and they're influencing the scenario. But like this is where there's a difference between just a flat out like heal someone and things that allow you to strategize around it. And because the other half of those cards also does something interesting. It's not just a top is a heal 4, bottom is a heal 4, right? And you're like, oh well, this card sounds like heaps of. You know, it's like top is a heal 4, bottom is do another thing, which, you know, is impactful. And when you give Phil all of his cards back, or you give Phil one card back, or you give Phil some healing, right? Because that's, I think most of them say heal Phil for 4, or give Phil back one card, right? I'm pretty sure that's what they say. It is having a difference, but there's always the option for you to do something else, which I think is a cool design with the Tinkerer, which we maybe didn't appreciate as much when we first saw it.
Yeah.
Its ability to play a kind of passive-ish, run around, do a few things, roll, and then just have a couple of turns where you burn a couple of cards and you have the cards to burn is an interesting kind of concept.
Yeah, it gives you those peaks. It gives me those things to look forward to, the build up of keeping everything steady, steady, steady. And then I think that's a big boon. I'm very happy that it goes, okay, cool. Now it's the Crankboat's time to shine, right? Without advantage. And that gives me a lot of excitement because I'm like, oh, I'm all in on this attack 8. And then I draw the -1 and I'm relieved, right? It's
yeah, it's not because it's not the null card, right? Yeah. So.
Silent Knife, just very quickly. Isolate versus Ally is number one. Like Phil got the open wounds thing a little confused, right? And that's because when we unboxed it, we were saying, you know, this is a +2 if they're alone, if they're not next to an ally, and this is +2 if it's next to one of your allies. And he openly said that he mixed the two up, and his open wounds, which he was applying a wound and gaining an XP when he thought that the enemy was meant to be on their own, actually needed to be next to one of us. And I like the design of it, but I think wording wise, it's confusing, or it's very easy to skim over and forget.
Yeah, I think because the two things are very similar, because you're talking about where and who. Yeah, it is an interesting one. And I know that when we unboxed it, we just read the cards out and read the words and we're like, oh yeah, whatever. Like it'll do what it says on the thing. But I'm not playing it. You're not playing it. And I imagine when you're sitting there with your hand of cards, it's very easy to kind of misread that because there isn't any keywords. You're not learning or internalizing keywords. You actually have to almost internalize the card. So like, oh, okay. So the top of open wounds, for example, I don't know. Is that an isolate one?
No, it's an ally one. But the thing is,
an ally one, yeah.
The word ally is used for both types. It's just one of them is your ally, and the other one is not next to its ally. And I think that's the confusing part.
That's exactly what I mean, right? So it's remembering that open wounds, when you're looking at the map and you're looking at working out your turns, you know, I can look at my cards and be like, oh yeah, cool, this is the card that's got an attack 1 wound on the bottom. Okay, now I instantly know why I need to be next to something, right? Like if I didn't start my turn next to something, then this card's mostly useless. Unless I combo it with Scurry, which is a move 3, attack 2. And I go, okay, I can do those because I can do the move that on a top. Because I can do the move and then I can hit that. So I kind of know that combos. Whereas with something like this, and I'm not saying it's bad by any stretch, or even overly difficult in a vacuum, but when you're just playing and you're going through, he's got to kind of internalize that open wounds wants it to be by itself or next to one of your allies, whichever one it is, right? probably confusing to get that wrong again. But he's got to internalize that, because it's like have a look at cards, have a quick look at the map, and work out what's the best card. And because there's maybe like half of his cards are like that, 4 or 5, like reference those things. I think he's just got to take slightly more time to, however he remembers things, remember which card does which, so that he can get quicker at doing that. And that's no shade on him. That's how I would do it. I would be like, I got to try to remember which ones these are, because there isn't a keyword. So yeah,
no, there's no keyword and there's no symbol either. I think sometimes when there's a lot of text on a lot of cards, if it could be summarized with a brand new kind of symbol, and obviously they don't want to flood it, but some people are visual numbers guys, right? They symbology just easily makes sense, and then the minute you throw a bunch of words in there, things can kind of get lost in translation. And I think this is just one of those instances where, look, if there was a kind of symbol, I mean, look, it'd be niche, right? Because it'd be for one character, but there actually are a lot of things that affect, ally. One is just an ally. You could probably have an ally symbol, right? You can probably introduce one that everyone will become familiar with, like a person and a plus or something like that. And then, yeah, it might make it easier. Look, we're not trying to redesign the wheel, but just slightly.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, and so thank you for those people that have pointed that out, because we wouldn't have seen it, right? Really, unless you go into, because again, you're not really reading all of those. So we appreciate anyone like kind of pointing out these kind of little errors that all of us are making. And yeah, we'll just keep working through it. And I think it's just being vigilant on that and having a look at which cards are. And so yeah, trying to remember. But,
the move 3 was unforgivable, Phil.
Part of what was that?
The move 3 was unforgivable though, so I've got a new hat for you, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, it's just cheat a little, right? Like that's it. But he has been playing the Silent Knife really well, outside of, again, these tiny little errors. And it's only really been this one scenario. I think he maybe missed a bunch of XP over the first 2 scenarios with how he was reading. But that's again, that's an amDirt error, not a cheaty error. He's been playing really well. Like, he's been destroying stuff. He's been carrying quite a lot. He's been drawing his crits, which is a natural fill innate ability. Yeah, he's again, comboing his cards quite well to get where he needs to be and save our bacon when our bacon is on the line.
Yeah, he seems to be enjoying it too, which is always a good sign. When your teammates are enjoying the character they're playing and they're not, checking out, what do you call it? All right, very quickly, we'll jump into our topic, because we've now completed 3 scenarios in the second edition of Gloomhaven. I'll just do a little rundown reminder of some of the 3 scenarios in a lot of the other ones in the series. So the Haven trifecta. In first ed, scenario 1, bandits. All right, Black Barrow. Had scouts, guards, which was a really kind of gross introduction to the Haven system, in that they've got the shield, the bandits hit real hard, etc. And then you finish off with the living bones. And I think thematically it was brilliant. It taught you about shield, it taught you about high damage, and trap removal as well, because there were 2 traps sitting right outside the door for the final room. Scenario 2 introduces a boss, so straight into the fray, with a timer mechanic, kinda, because I think the earlier you kill it, I think it stops opening the doors. I think one of the boss specials is just leaping around, opening doors, letting in more mobs. I don't remember, and I could have checked this and added this here, but I was in a rush. I don't remember whether or not it was a kill all or if it was just kill the boss. I think if it is a kill all, then definitely is a timer mechanic, because, and it also introduces living corpses as a new monster, which was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. A fairly brutal follow up to Black Barrow. And it still has living bones and bandit archers. On paper, it did sound gross. And then after that, you're split into 2 different choices between scenario and scenario 3, which introduces the Inox Guard, Archer, and Shamans. So it introduces you to your first supportive kind of monster, which is more of the same as minus the shaman. It's more of the same with more guards and more archers, and I think it's a kill all or loot all or something like that. And scenario 4, which will become the other third, which introduces summoning, because you get cultists and you also get living spirits and bandits. So the way I've summarized it up, and feel free to jump in, is that ultimately the intro into Gloomhaven, it starts brutal, but once you clear those first two, it kind of, I think, starts to ease a little bit. Not necessarily get easier, like falling off a cliff, but the first two really prep you for the rest of the game.
Yeah, because it starts at 11 and then they just continue to be at 11. They're like, oh, you were fine with that? Now that you've got some levels, some cards, and some items, the scenarios that are maybe equally as difficult or slightly less difficult are actually heaps easier.
Yeah.
So it's all a comparison thing. So yeah, that's an interesting recap. Yeah, okay, cool.
Jaws of the Lion gives you mostly Vermling Raiders for the first two scenarios. And then the third one throws in a Zealot and Vipers. So the Zealot, I can't really remember. I think they're Jaws exclusive. I think they're kind of like cultists, and that's just based on their silhouette. But just, it feels like, just on paper anyway, I think Phil and I ran it on digital and we had videos up for it. And I think it was still brutal. But it feels like a gentler on paper entry into the series. And I think that was Jaws' whole job, right? Is to introduce you into this fairly complex system as easy as possible without too many mechanics. When you're dealing with the same one mob, over and over again in the Vermling Raiders, in a flat out comparison to the first edition. Frosthaven introduced us via Town in Flames. All right, so the Algox was a new type of Inox. We had priests, we had archers, we had guards, and we had the first intro, like from the get-go, we had allies in the town guards who didn't do anything. They had retaliate and they had a shield or something like that. The second scenario gave you more Olgox and scouts, and it introduces an escort in the priest.
That's right.
Now, was there
and an objective to kill the ice wall at the back of it?
Yes. Good memory. I've only just now remembered that was the second one for us. I think you could choose between 2 or 3. We never did 3, and I never looked into what
That's
3 had. Did that also have an escort in it as well?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And then third, which I think you were alluding to, was the double boss fight, and probably the first unlock for every party that basically did it. So from a mechanics point of view, it is the heaviest trio, I dare say. They throw everything in the kitchen sink, and they literally were just like, hey, we heard you like first edition. Let's expand on that. Let's dial it up. You like 11? We've gone to 22.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting because I feel like how brutal an introduction it is for the system, the game, etc. I don't think that Frosthaven is as brutal, and I could be completely wrong. So maybe I can't have the experience of playing the first 3 scenarios of Frosthaven as my first ever Haven. I kind of did as Gloomhaven, right? So it's a bias thing, but I feel like scenario 1 is pretty tricky. But at the end of the day, you just got to make sure that not all the guards die. But there's some that first room in scenario 1 of Frosthaven, and then opening the door can be a bit brutal, but you can kind of manage it get a bit clogged. Scenario 2 again is interesting. We lost it because we let the priest die, because we were being slack and you open the door. No, you open the door. Oh, no, how about no one opens the door? Oh, I'll open the door a little bit, and then the priest just ran forward and died. Oh. Yeah, I know. And then even scenario 3 with the face-off, that's not hard, right? It's not. I can see how you could lose that, but it's more lots of things to remember and different ways of working. So it's almost like Frosthaven was setting you up. The Gloomhaven first edition was setting you up to this game's brutal. You need to be careful what you do. It's not it's not Hero Quest or anything else. Just run into the room and just blow all your cooldowns. You need to actually plan and strategize what you're doing and work together. That's what the first 3 scenarios of Gloomhaven were doing. Frosthaven, on the other hand, was like, hey, we're going to make this is different, right? So it's all of the things of Gloomhaven, but you also need to understand how rules work, and you're going to have to plan what you do around the rules more than just what monsters are on the map, right? And I think scenario 2 and 3 particularly, but also a little bit of 1, Frosthaven introduced this idea of objectives because scenario 1, Frosthaven, protect the guards. Scenario 2 is kill the ice wall.
Scenario 1 was kill everything, and the protect the guards was a bonus that wasn't actually revealed. It's kind of like however many you have left,
What?
You gain not morale, you gain soldiers in the barracks or something like that.
So I thought you lost if all the soldiers died.
Oh, maybe. I actually don't
I
remember.
don't know. Maybe, yeah. Oh, you could be right. So either way, so you had this maybe a sub objective in there, and then scenario 2 had the ice wall, so get through and kill a thing, right? And then scenario 3 was obviously the extra complexity with the bosses and how you're going to do that. So they compared to scenario 1, 2, and 3 from Gloomhaven, which, yeah, as you said, might have a looter thing in there. So yeah, it's a very different like thing they were trying to set you up for, and if you follow that path along. Frosthaven, and whether you loved it or hated it, it's irrelevant. But like the scenarios generally were not just kill all. They were either kill all with a twist, or they were like there is some wacky, like kind of different objective here, and there's going to be a whole sort of a bunch of rules which do that. So yeah, I think they both intro the game in their own way, right?
They definitely do. And I want to be clear, when I say like heavy, I'm talking about the special rules and the mechanics. It throws, you're managing 2 bosses and you're managing, the boss special 1s and 2s in that third scenario of the intro, as well as obviously dealing with an escort. This is and the formula. Although the bandit commander would have had the formula too of the health equal X plus at, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, from a get-go, like this is why people say, I got a really good deal on Frosthaven. I'm thinking of buying it for my group who've never played a Haven series. Everyone's just like, play First Ed or play Jaws of the Lion first, right? For that exact reason. Because, I mean, it's a board game. You're going to be setting it up on the table and you can get rules wrong and just rules wrong your way through it and be fine, right? But if you were playing it rules as written and you are adamant about it, I think it's going to be the heaviest overhead. Whereas I think First Ed is definitely the hardest from a difficulty point of view.
The start is definitely. But I think you start working it out as you start getting there. But you're right. Frosthaven throws enough stuff at you that it's probably still hard or has these spikes of difficulty mid-game because there's some scenarios that the rules just make it really tricky. So, yeah, interesting. And how does that all compare to Ed, second Ed, do you reckon?
Because of the monster decisions that they've used in the other examples, I think second Ed, I don't know if this was intentional, but I feel like the devs who've created the scenarios and chosen the monster types to go in there, and I think we've talked about this last week briefly, was that I think they've slowly tried to introduce different facets of the game for how you deal with shield, how do you deal with retaliate, how do you deal with traps, how do you deal with obstacles, and allowing a lot of the starters to shine. I think it's the most well-rounded and type of scenario trio to introduce someone into the game. And I think that was easily done with the monster choice, which is probably why it's a bit weird that living spirits are running around with frost demons and hounds, right? But from a mechanical point of view, not a crazy amount of rules overhead, but just going, okay, cool, you've dealt with scenario 1, here's now deal with this, deal with a summoning dude, right? Deal with a dude that it's a priority target. Now deal with a whole bunch of a horde of hounds that are going to rip you to shreds. How are you going to, are you going to waste burn cards to burst these guys down? Or are you going to try and sustain through it, right? All whilst you're now dealing with curses coming from a living spirit who has high shield, and also has the ability to heal itself, I think, and heal ally and all that kind of stuff. So I think they nailed it and made it a really, really good, well-rounded intro into the game. I think it misses the theatrics of Frosthaven, but I was spoilt, I guess, from the theatrics of Frosthaven. Frosthaven from a intro into the world of Frosthaven, in even that first thing where you're approaching Frosthaven, this little outpost and it's on fire and there's algox happening. And look, we were spoiled that we had Fortella narrating it to us because that really added to it. I think second Ed, unfortunately, doesn't have that feel. Maybe I'll have to go listen to the Fortella reading of it and not the JOTL version of it. But I think it's incredibly solid as an intro. And if I had to choose one of the trios to play again right now, I would probably still pick second Ed.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I mean, I definitely think that if somebody was like, "What should I start with?" And you were just basing it off the starting three scenarios, not all of the stuff. I agree that second ed is probably the best iteration of what you want to do to introduce someone to a game like this. It's not easy, but it's gradual. There's signposting for stuff that you know is coming later. So like the cultist summons, but only summons every other turn.
Mm,
Next time we run into them, they're not going to have that same ability, right? But it's also going to be random because they're going to have their own ability deck. So they're going to be,
mm,
all right, yeah. Like, so again, there's all these little bits and pieces. People may have pure damage on their cards for the first two scenarios and be like, it's not really that good. And then they fight a, they don't know that they exist. So they fight a living spirit that has so many shields that you can't actually punch through. And they're like, wait, it's only got two health, right? Oh wow, my do a pure damage to everything around me is actually going to kill these or almost kill these guys. So yeah, I definitely agree from a new person into the game. And for us, it's been enjoyable because I feel like we're kind of new anyway, right? We don't really know anything about the game. We're not very good at it, and we're just trying to fumble our way through. So yeah, it's definitely been enjoyable so far. I kind of hope. I'm hoping that this kind of bar for how things go through has been continually raised, like the thought around the design and how things work and why things are there and all that, which I know a lot of work went into in the first edition, so I don't want to take away from that. I know that heaps of effort went into it. Um, but yeah, as a three kind of trio scenario comparison, yeah, I have to agree with you.
nice. No, yeah.
So it's not
I,
very interesting when we agree, is it?
No, no, but at the same time, yeah, it's a testament to, like, I think more so with Second Ed now, with the variety of the monsters and everything we mentioned earlier about how that introduces you to different things. I think that it heavily also introduces you to changing your hand, your starting hand, before you go into any given scenario. And I think that's really important, that every character has a whole bunch of tools, but you're not rolling the character and going, hey, these are my 12 favorite cards and these are the only ones I'm ever going to use, apart from swapping out one every time I level up. Because I think that that's something that we got to do. I've used so many different types of cards right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point as well because I feel like and I'm only going from memory and from what you just said in first ed is that you don't really have a lot of signposting or a lot of information upfront information is probably the right word for it on what why you should change your cards in the scenarios because firstly your first scenario black barrow you have no idea what game what's happening you just take whatever cards you've got right your second one you might look and go like oh they've got like living corpses which just have heaps of hp and some boss bandit guy okay well I don't know what they're going to do so there's not really oh I should change this card because it's better for whatever right you're just
Mm.
going with that um and then I think you said the third one maybe has the cultist in it, or you can choose your pathways, and there's Algox, or there's like, yeah. So then maybe that starts to go, oh, if you did have different cards, you could choose them. But again, it doesn't really say you should. Where is definitely in second ed, I think if you are aware of the notion that you should be picking different tools for it. And as I said, coming into scenario three, I was very aware that I was like, I should not be bringing this rat thing. Um, I think again that's really good, right? Like it's a really good way of saying like, yeah, this is you probably should change your cards around a little bit. So,
Mm. No, very cool.
and if you don't, it teaches that lesson, right? This is the thing that I think. No, but honestly, it's not
It does.
like you should be able to pick up on that before you go in and then change it. But like when you go in and go like, oh man, those spirits were brutal. Like you go into the next scenario and go, does anyone have anything that deals with them?
You're
Someone's like, oh, I've got
communicating,
this
you're
one that
planning, you're incorporating your teammates. You're sitting there going, can you handle
mm,
that? Okay, I'm really good at dealing with the hounds, so I'll bring stuff to blow up the hounds. You deal with the spirits, right? Or does someone have poison? Does someone have wound? And that's the cooperative part of the game. That's the party aspect. That's getting together,
yeah.
and coming up with those, a plan of attack to completing these scenarios that we
Yeah.
love so much.
Yeah, and I think if new parties of three or four people were getting wiped in Black Barrows at the start because they were just learning the game and the game was just like, hey, now you die, I feel like that event probably the first room of scenario 3 is where that event happens for new people in 2 point in second ed. Right, they take their cards, they don't know about hounds, the hounds run up and absolutely murder them, and they go, we have to restart, but they've already got a couple of scenarios under their belt, so they're like, oh wait, we can kind of know roughly what we should be doing, but we have to counter this somehow because we couldn't hit the wolves because they were retaliating so much, and also these spirits were almost invincible. And that's when you start would be like, well, has anyone got anything? Yeah, you're right. That's when the planning happens, and a restart of the scenario or a replay doesn't feel as bad because you've kind of already in a bit. Whereas that happens in the first 5 turns of scenario 1 of Black Burrow, I'm sure there were people that were like, I don't play this game. This game's dumb, right? Yeah, again, it's a clever decision if that was the intention.
So, yeah, we'll close it out there. I did put a thing out there in our Discord about where should we go next. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning or something like that. And Pete just happened to be online. And I said, you can choose. Where do we go next? And it was like, do you want a non-kill scenario, kill all scenario? And I'm like, that's a spoiler pill, Pete. Just give us the number. Just give us the number. So he did. We got scenario 5. All I know is it's a non-kill all, which is going to be interesting. Because that was going to be, how far into the game are we going to starting to get these extra scenario goals, and when are we going to start to be introduced to a boss and unlimited spawns and all of that kind of good stuff. So as far as I know, we will be doing scenario 5. And with that, yeah, that wraps up this episode of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. Thanks again for tuning in. With that, I've been your host, Teddy. I've been joined by Gaz.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly,